Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
Welcome to our weird world, where shadows whisper old truths and every retelling brings ancient fears back to life. Tonight, gather close as we journey to the lonely railway lines in Japan, where sorrow became rage and where an untimely death became something far worse. This is the legend of Teke Teke, the woman forever severed from herself and from peace. They say it began on a cold winter night in Sapporo decades ago, when the snow fell thick enough to silence even the rattle of passing trains. Her name, some say, was Kashima Riko, a young woman whose life had already been carved by sorrow. The stories vary on how she ended up on the tracks. Some speak of a malicious prank that left her stranded, others of despair that pushed her to end it herself. But in every version, what happened next is always the same. Her body lay across the rails as the express train bore down, steel shrieking against steel. In an instant of screaming brakes and rushing metal, her body was torn apart at the waist. Her torso, still alive for precious seconds, clawed at the frozen gravel, trying to pull herself to safety, while the snow turned black with her blood beneath her. When she died, so did the last kindness in her spirit. Decades later, the name, Kashima Riko, faded into rumor. The legend grew teeth. Children huddled together after class, daring each other to repeat the story aloud. They spoke of a ghost that roamed school grounds, train stations, and empty streets at night. A woman with no legs, dragging herself forward on bloodied elbows. The scraping noise she made gave her the name Teke Teke, echoing the sound of bone and flesh skittering over asphalt. They say that if you saw her, you'd only have seconds to live. She would ask, "Where are my legs?" And if you couldn't answer, or even hesitated, she'd slice you in half, just as she had been. Some whispers that she carried a rusty scythe or sharpened sickle, its blades curved like a mocking smile. One tale tells of Yumi, a college student rushing home late at night, breath clouding the cold air. Her train pulled into a small, nearly forgotten station. She stepped onto the platform, her phone's battery long dead, and the station itself little more than cracked concrete and flickering lamps. She then heard it, a faint, wet scraping, like someone dragging something heavy across stone. Teke, teke. At first, she thought it was just a stray cat, but as the sound grew louder, it grew faster, echoing across the platform. Yumi turned and froze. A woman's upper body was crawling toward her. Long black hair clung to a pale, contorted face. Blood trailed behind, streaming in the cold. The thing's elbows slapped the ground, pulling it forward at inhuman speed. Teke, teke. Yumi ran, her breath tore in her lungs. The scraping sound grew louder. It was impossibly close. When she risked a glance back, the crawling woman had vanished. For a heartbeat, Yumi thought she'd escaped. Then she saw the reflection of the station's cracked glass door. A pale, wide-eyed face right behind her, and a flash of cold steel. They found Yumi the next morning on the tracks, her body cut in half at the waist, just as the legend foretold. Folklorists say the Teke Teke is an onryō, a vengeful spirit so consumed by pain it can never move on. But this legend holds something darker still. They say Kashima's ghost doesn't just kill out of rage. She kills because she envies the living who still have what she lost. Wholeness, mobility, and dignity. When she takes her victim, she isn't merely seeking revenge. She's dragging them into her own nightmare so she won't be alone. Some claim her spirit is trapped by the rails that killed her, forced to return to them every night. But in the stolen moments before dawn, she crawls away beyond the station, searching, always searching. Another story tells of Hiroshi, a high school boy walking home across an overpass that cut above the local railway. The sun had barely set, painting the sky a bruised purple. He saw something strange. A girl in a school uniform looked to be leaning over the concrete ledge. She was perfectly still, as if listening. When Hiroshi called out, she turned, and he saw her eyes, hollow and hungry. Before he could run, she pushed off from the ledge, not down to the tracks, but onto the overpass itself. It was then that he saw her body ended in torn flesh just above the waist. She landed on her elbows and skittered towards him impossibly fast. Teke, teke. Hiroshi stumbled backwards, heart hammering. As he fell, the creature stopped, head cocked. "Where are my legs?" she rasped. His mind blanked. All he could do was stare at her face, twisted by pain and hatred. When he didn't answer, the ghost's mouth split into a grin too wide for her face, and the last thing he saw was a flash of silver. Some say Teke Teke only appears in certain places, near train tracks, empty stations, or lonely overpasses. Others insist she can find you anywhere, school halls after dark, alleys behind convenience stores, or even in your own dreams. There are those who claim to have escaped. One boy, trembling, recounted how he answered her questions. "Your legs are on the Mission Expressway." For a reason no one understands, Teke Teke paused and disappeared. Perhaps in that answer he acknowledged her pain, buying himself mercy, but most are not so lucky. Today, children in Japan still whisper about Teke Teke during summer ghost story nights. Some draw her in notebook margins, a head, a torso, and arms ending in sharpened bone. Others refuse to speak her name after dark, fearing it might summon her. The legend endures because it feeds on primal fears, helplessness, sudden violence, and spirits so consumed by suffering that they become something monstrous. We can't help but wonder, if we too lost everything in a moment of pain, would we linger behind, clawing our way through the night? In the end, the story of Teke Teke is just a tale of sorrow that curdled into rage. She was once a woman, young and alive, whose story was ended by steel and cold indifference. But death gave her a new story, one that keeps running long after her heart stopped. And so, if you ever hear that dry, scraping sound late at night, Teke Teke, don't look, don't answer, and above all, don't stop, because she won't. As we leave you here, remember, the legends of our weird world are boundless. Tonight, we glimpse the tragedy and terror of Teke Teke, a spirit severed from peace, forever searching for what was stolen. If you've enjoyed this story, please share, like, and subscribe to our channel to help keep these stories alive. Your support keeps the echoes of these forgotten souls from fading into silence. Until next time, stay curious and always remember, some ghosts crawl faster than fear itself.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.